Hey there, Rodney from location, reporting in with some quick thoughts about just the championship, how it's been going, and where we're at before this final triple header. I'm not at home. This is not my studio. My studio, aka my living room. I'm on holiday, and I've had a few days where I haven't felt so well, so I've just been bumming around the hotel kind of thing with my thoughts. Never good, but I'm here with testing out some technology, but also offering some thoughts about the championship, how we're poised going into the final triple header. Obviously, with traveling, it was a bit difficult to watch the qualifying and the sprint races and the race from Brazil, but I got across it all and watched the qualifying and I watched the race. I think obviously if you're a Lando fan, you must be feeling pretty good, pretty happy with the result. Obviously, there's talk of momentum swings, and I know sports people say, "Yeah, I don't really believe in momentum," but it does sort of seem like, and I've been feeling it for a long time, that the momentum's been swinging Lando's way. Momentum meaning whatever you want it to mean, run of good form, things clicking where they were not formally clicking. Certainly, things seem to be clicking for Lando, and literally the converse has happened for Piastri. He's gone from really being strong almost every week to struggling for whatever reason, struggling in qualifying, and that turning into a struggle in the race. So here's some thoughts about how things are poised. Obviously, we went into Brazil more or less neck and neck. Lando, though, taking a slight psychological edge, having crept 1 point ahead of Piastri, but still pretty close. Really, I went into this race thinking it's not over at all for Piastri. It's definitely still all on the table. And if one race goes his way and Lando crashes out or something, like it's going to be tough for Lando to come back. But even then, I went into it thinking, well, if both drivers perform, Lando may still have the edge. And then, as we saw during the race weekend in Brazil, and as we've seen really the last few race weekends, although Oscar was sort of there and thereabouts sometimes, he struggled. And so it wasn't a matter of them both performing. Lando was performing, and Oscar was sort of not. Obviously, Piastri also this the last few days has released this, like he was on that show Beyond the Grid, where it's like a 1 hour interview with him, and I sort of tuned in and out of that show because I'm interested in what the drivers have to say, but I'm not that interested in like what the former reserve physiotherapist for some big grade driver had to say about what it was like in the 90s. So the quality I think of guests on that show has really kind of dropped off, and at best I cherry pick who I listen to, but I listened to the Piastri one. And I have seen just online a lot of reactions after the Brazil weekend to just the state of things. And I think that there's obviously two camps that you fall into. And the one camp is, Lando had a difficult first half of the year. And his defenders will say, everyone comes out against Lando and says, guys, he doesn't have the mentality. He's soft. He doesn't know how to drive properly. There's nothing wrong with his car. It's all between his ears, sort of thing. And they defend him, and they're like, "That's not the case. He's showing now that he has the strength and the personality to do it, the determination and the skill to do it." Which I think, to be fair, a lot of people have always known that he had the skill to do it. And only the sort of online haters and trolls might say like Lando is soft, doesn't have the championship mentality, doesn't have what it takes to be a champion. I know on this show we've been critical of Lando when there's been something to be critical of. I would say I don't think we've ever just been haters. I wouldn't say that we're fanboys of Lando, but when there's something to point to, like a misjudged overtake attempt that goes awry, we call it like we see it. But anyway, there's the Lando camp who are pointing out that that Lando is the guy, and Piastri really never was the guy. And it was only because Lando was having trouble with the car. And if Lando hadn't been having trouble with the car, Piastri wouldn't have done as well, and people wouldn't be talking about him in such glowing terms, and so on and so forth. Then there's the flip side of the coin. There's obviously the Piastri fans, and it's funny to watch and hear. We'll get into some of the British media coverage as well soon, but like, it's been funny to hear some of the reactions and the analysis from the Brazil weekend. Obviously, in the sprint Grand Prix, Lando qualifies well for the sprint and then takes off and leads. And Piastri has that moment where he gets on the curb and slips. People point out, yeah, lots of other drivers got on that same curb on that same lap and slipped just like he did. So it's not something to do with him as such as just the condition of bad luck. He's had a bit of bad luck go his way, to be honest. And then, during the race, obviously he doesn't get his qualifying together. Does an okay sort of recovery drive. Lots of talk about the penalty that he got against Kimi Antonelli, which ended up taking out Charles Leclerc. I sort of saw this one and I tried to post online during the race as a verification that this was my reaction, but I essentially saw it more as a poor decision and a poor call from Kimi, for which Piastri became not the scapegoat, but he bore the brunt of the penalties. So, I saw people say, well, he dive bombed Antonelli. Absolutely stupid assessment of the situation when he was alongside, halfway down the straight or something like that. Antonelli apparently got some wheel spin or something on the restart, and that's why he was slow. Because Piastri was behind Leclerc, and Leclerc went right, Piastri went left. So Piastri, if he'd pulled it off cleanly, would have actually overtaken 2 cars on that start, which would have been pretty impressive. And he's in the championship fight. We want to see people going for moves like this anyway. So Antonelli, it was proven that Antonelli was looking to his left at Piastri in his mirror. So Antonelli saw him. He knew he was there. And yes, Antonelli, in terms of the regulations, is entitled to the line and doesn't need to give Piastri any space. But as people pointed out, ironically, if Oscar had really dive bombed and just kamikazed his way through, he probably would have been sufficiently alongside. And Antonelli actually would have been found at fault for cutting him off. But the problem for Piastri is, and Antonelli knows this, the problem for Piastri is he can't afford to have a crash. He can't afford to score no points when his main championship rival might win. Antonelli knows that. That's why he pulled across. But Piastri was trying to get out of the move. And then everyone pointed out, well, he was locking up his brakes, so he was out of control of his car. He was not sufficiently alongside Antonelli. And again, he was only getting out of it. He was trying to do the right thing. He was trying to get out of it before it was too late, and then it was too late. I don't think any driver wanted that to happen. But I was in the camp very firmly that Antonelli did a stupid thing. Now, I never posted, not once, that Piastri didn't deserve a penalty, because I could understand why that penalty was handed down, but I still think it's harsh. That's a harsh penalty for what happened. And people have pointed out the rules were applied properly and appropriately there, but the problem is with the rules. A few incidents came to mind. Obviously, you have Hulkenberg, who on turn 1 in the Austin sprint was going up the inside way, 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 way further back than Piastri was. And Hulkenberg had full view of all the cars ahead of him. This was when Norris had a slower start than Piastri. Piastri got alongside along the outside, but Norris was going to go wide on the exit. So Piastri slowed down and tried to cut back and then cut in front of Hulkenberg, and Piastri made contact, and that took out Piastri and Hulkenberg and Norris. A lot was made of that incident too. And my point was, well, what's Hulkenberg's the one who could do something about that, and he didn't. So why isn't he found at fault? The McLaren team found Piastri at fault because of the low percentage move that he was making, you could say. But that's between them. That's how their team runs. That's about how the team runs itself. Not a stewarding thing. Obviously, the steward said that's a lap 1 incident, so I don't need to do anything about that. But still, the other incident that came to mind was Carlos Sainz against Liam Lawson recently, where Carlos Sainz was trying to go around the inside. Liam Lawson cut across and cut him off, and then and Carlos Sainz got a penalty, and he appealed. And I don't think he had his time changed, but he was given 2 penalty points, and he had that removed. And the argument then was that Liam Lawson was the one that was out of control, partially, and so he contributed to the crash, and so it's not fair to penalise Carlos Sainz any penalty points. So that makes sense. And I was thinking, well, wait a second. Oscar Piastri here, I'm saying, wound up in a bit of a bad spot and was just trying to get out of it, couldn't disappear, and got a penalty and points and driver's points. I guess the difference is that he was locking up and Antonelli wasn't. Again, I think he was just pretty harshly done by there, but that's as far as I would push that. In terms of the championship, though, in terms of the points, so obviously a great weekend for Lando where he wins the sprint, Piastri comes away with zip, Norris wins the race, Piastri has to recover. He was running in P2. Annoyingly, that penalty meant that we didn't get to see those two battle it out, so we don't know what else he could have done, if anything else. But even if he followed him around in P2, that would have been better for him. But because of the penalty, because of the way the tyre strategies worked out, a weird two-stop strategy for Piastri as well. He couldn't really recover as well as he would have liked, I'm sure, and only got to fifth. And so a few points, not nothing, but still giving Lando a 24-point buffer, nearly a full race win with 3 races to go. 3 race weekends and 1 sprint, I believe. So tough. The other way to look at it is that, and many people pointed this out, Max Verstappen was kind of nowhere in qualifying for some reason, but went from a pit lane start to finish P3 on the podium. So he had pace, he had good strategy, was able to make good moves. And a lot of people said, if he had qualified for front row, he might have won. He might have won that race. Maybe ifs and buts and all that. If my dad had if your mum had those things, she'd be that other person. But still, let's say Max Verstappen could have won that race, and then Norris finishes P2. Obviously, that helps Verstappen in the championship. I mean, I would say that this weekend probably all but ruled Max Verstappen out of the championship, to be fair. But if Max Verstappen had won in Brazil and Lando Norris had come second, that swing of points just makes such a big difference. And then even if things had gone better for Piastri, say he didn't get this harsh penalty, he might have finished third even, say. Let's hypothetically, let's say. And let's say he doesn't crash out or spin out in the wet of the sprint race. It wouldn't have been as disastrous of a weekend for Piastri. Now, I mean, again, if my mum had those things, she'd be that other person. But still, it wasn't, unfortunately for Piastri, it just wasn't his weekend. He didn't come away with the points, but he also wasn't so far off it. And I feel like people are talking about it as if he's so far off it. On the last podcast we did, Zach was trying to point this out as well, to say, like, Piastri's always been there. He's had a bit of bad luck, and he might not be, mopping the floor with Norris like he has at other races, but he's still there. It's not over. That's certainly true. But I still say that Norris has the edge, and I still say that it's going to take, obviously now, a lot for Piastri to come back and win it. He's going to need to do everything perfect, have all the results go his way, but also a bit of he'll have to see what happens with Norris. Maybe Verstappen can get involved and interfere with that a little bit, or some penalties, or engine issues, or who knows what. Anything can happen in Formula One, of course. I've learned that over the years. But it's sort of looking good for Lando Norris. That sort of brings us into some of the British commentary and reactions, but also fan reactions. People saying now, can't stand Oscar Piastri. God, he's such a whinger. Anything doesn't go his way and he has a sulk about it. And I mean, it's hard to hear that because I just disagree so strongly. I mean, listening to him on that Beyond the Grid podcast, it really drove home some of the things that just haven't gone his way and how touch and go a lot of them are. Also, a lot of people saying, like, McLaren are just doing everything they can to keep things even between these drivers, right? And yet over the course of a season, there's been many, many flashpoints between those two drivers. Many. It's been an active and colourful season, really. But it's hard to think of anything that's gone Piastri's way in terms of team interference or team dominance, or times where things have happened that the team have had to intervene and do something about it. So you could think of like, I mean, Canada, Norris hits Piastri, wrecks his own race, but comes away. There's no, you know, there's actually no consequences for that. Next race, Piastri gets stuffed up in qualifying, has a bit of a lunge on Norris and gets told by the team, "Hey, whoa, whoa, don't do that. Don't challenge." He also got told in Melbourne, "Don't challenge. Too marginal. Don't challenge like that." Jeez. Silverstone, 3 miles ahead. They call a safety car. He loses his lead. I'm still saying dubious penalty behind the safety car for braking. But look, it is what it is. But it hands Norris the lead. And then this is when people start to lose interest in Piastri, I think, who are the ones who don't want to see him as, a reasonable or fair-headed person. When he was saying to the team, look, I don't think any of this is fair. I just don't think any of this is fair. Why don't we switch around and then we'll race? And the team did nothing. I'm the first one to say that out of all the times when Piastri's pleaded to the team, that was probably the least appealing. But still, they could have done something and they didn't. All right, they didn't. Okay. But then there's also the Monza swap, a really weird one, really going to go down as the turning point of the season, I think. And those pointing out, well, Piastri got to stop first because Lando let him. Like, that's not at all the point of what happened there. It's just not at all the point. The point is the team did a slow stop for Lando and a good-ish stop for Piastri, and then Piastri got in front. That's it. That's the end of it. That's racing, and that's just the way that goes. The Piastri can't do anything about that. The team can't do anything about that, but they did. I mean, Piastri was only as close as he was because he drove as well as he did that day. If he was way off the pace and was 30 seconds behind and the team still made that mistake, well, then he would have been fine, wouldn't he? Some thoughts on that one. But I mean, that was a time when the team did something that benefited Lando. And then Oscar was straight away on the radio saying, I don't understand this. We've talked about this. We said that this is not a scenario where we'll do this. And yet we're doing it. Weird. Well, yet you'll have to tell me why later. And I can understand where they're coming from, but I mean, it plays into the element of fairness that they seem to care so much about. I don't think I've really expressed it anywhere in a video before, but McLaren say they're all about being fair with their drivers. I believe that they think that in terms of points. I'm not sure that they believe that in terms of creating, a safe psychological space for drivers to be their optimum. We know that psychology is so important. Again, everyone was sticking the boot into Lando about, not having the championship mentality. Now they're sticking the boot into Oscar, saying you don't have the championship mentality. We know that, famously drivers and sports people from all walks have challenges when it comes to psychology and maintenance and staying in the peak mental space so you can perform at your optimum. And what I think has happened at McLaren, right or wrong, is that they've tried to keep things fair and sporting on the track and in terms of results and points. But there's no argument for me that they have not maintained fair and balanced treatment of the drivers in terms of their, behavior, mentality, treatment by the team. Again, you could look at Singapore, where Norris, Norris puts a hard but fair move on Piastri, but they make contact. And the team's justification was, well, Lando, Lando was trying to avoid Verstappen and just accidentally hit you, sorry. And then it knocked you way offline. You lost all your momentum through that corner and you couldn't defend after that. So sorry, you just lose the position. And then straight away, again, Oscar was like, well, isn't that one of those things that's unfair? When the golden rule of the team is don't hit your teammate, and he hits me, especially when the result is that we end up switching positions, why are you not doing anything? And obviously after that, we had this sort of famous talk of repercussions. There's going to be repercussions. And Lando said, "Oh, I didn't get away with it. I didn't get away with anything. There were repercussions. Nothing in races, though. It was all about like qualifying running order, or no one really knows. It wasn't disclosed. Piastri said for reasons that they didn't want to give their challengers an advantage of knowing their tactics, for example. But still, there was some kind of repercussions. Doesn't seem like any repercussions for qualifying or whatever was going to make up for the fact that the team, again, when they needed to make a call, the team favored Lando and disadvantaged Oscar when they were asked to make a judgment. And then you get the Austin situation, which I think, again, I don't think Piastri was as to blame for that as Lando was to blame for the Singapore incident. And yet, after that, repercussions are off over a small altercation in a sprint race, which left them both with 0 points each. And it didn't even disadvantage one person over the other. They both came out. There was the same result for both. And then repercussions off. That was the team's determination. And Oscar would say, well, I was wronged in Singapore. There were meant to be repercussions. Now you're claiming that I'm at fault here. And as a result, those repercussions will be lifted to square things again. Like, I mean, you could argue that all day long. I think it's pretty clear they were at fault. I would like to see Oscar close out the year strongly. That's all. Win, lose, or draw. He won't draw. Win or lose. And again, Lando's probably favourite from here, which is fine. He'll be a worthy champion. That's the other thing. People saying, oh, neither of these drivers will be a worthy champion. Whoever wins. That's bullshit. Both of them will be a worthy driver. Winner. But win or lose, Piastri, I hope he finishes strong because he deserves it. He's had a great year. I think he just needs a few controversy-free races where he gets on top of things in qualifying, qualifies well, and he's just there for the race. And even if he can't get past during the race well, he might be able to build some confidence for the following race. Who knows what? But yeah, I'd like to see Piastri just finish out the year strong. I'd like to see Lando finish the year strong too. And again, I think Verstappen's out of it now. But anyway, that was just some quick thoughts about the state of the championship heading into the last 3 races. I thought that the next race was this weekend. I had it wrong. So I thought it was like a double header, a week off and double header. Instead, it's a week off and a triple header. Great for me because I get to go home and watch the races at a normal time from my couch, which would be nice. But yeah, let me know what you think about the state of the race. You can always shoot me a message on Threads or post a comment on here. I was thinking the other day how people on YouTube, they always say, leave a comment down below. It's about engagement farming to get people to comment, to make YouTube think that the channel is more active and enticing. The videos, the content's more enticing than it maybe is. I genuinely like reading people's comments. I read all of them and I try to respond to as many as I can. So if you want to say anything, leave a comment. You'll be able to get in touch with me through there. Or you can email us superlicenspodcast@gmail.com. We're at superlicensf1 on Threads. You know how to find us. Let me know what you're looking forward to, etc. towards the end of the race. I'm going to go. Catch you later.